Hey guys, tonight we journey back, way back, into a world that doesn't have cities, Wi-Fi, or even fire. Just leaves above, shadows below, and the ever-present threat of falling to your doom or being eaten before breakfast. You're not lying in bed anymore. You're in a tree, high above the forest floor, cradled in branches slick with dew and the musky scent of bark. The air smells like green. Yes, that's a real thing when you've lived here all your life. It's humid, buzzing with insects, and somewhere in the distance, something big is growling. Your fingers curl instinctively around the branch beneath you. Long, dexterous fingers with nails, not claws. Your toes? Also perfect for gripping. You are an ape. Not just any ape. You're one of the great ones, and you don't know it yet, but your lineage is going to cheat the system in ways no other creature has ever managed. Right now, though, you're just trying not to fall out of a tree. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The forest is your world. Everything you know is nestled in a dense web of branches and vines. You leap, you swing, you groom your troop mates. You watch for snakes, eagles, and that one jerk of a male who's always trying to steal your food. Life here is a full-time job. No PTO, no weekends off, just survival. But you're built for it. Your body is designed to navigate this vertical jungle. Forward-facing eyes help you judge the distance between branches with terrifying accuracy. Your arms are long, your balance impeccable. Your brain? It's not huge, but it's clever. Social, too. You remember faces, alliances, petty betrayals. You know which cousin will share food, and which will yank it out of your hand. In this leafy arena, social intelligence is just as important as brute strength. You live by rules you don't know exist, rules etched into the genome of every creature around you. Evolution is not a master planner. It's a clumsy, brilliant, blind tinkerer. You survive if you fit the game board. If not, you disappear. There's no redo button, just extinction. Over countless generations, traits that work stick around. Traits that don't get quietly deleted. It's a slow process until, one day, the game board itself changes. Beneath your tree, the ground begins to rumble. Not in a sudden, cinematic earthquake, but in a slow, relentless tectonic shrug. The Great Rift Valley is forming, a colossal scar across East Africa. Forests that once stretched endlessly begin to fragment. Trees grow farther apart. The lush green canopy becomes patchy, broken, unreliable. In gaming terms, the devs nerfed the map. Suddenly, your advantages, your swinging arms, your branch-gripping feet, your treetop strategies start to fail. Food sources are farther away. Predators are harder to avoid. The jungle is no longer a continuous highway of safety. Instead, it's giving way to something terrifying: the savanna. Open plains stretch to the horizon, dotted with scattered trees and whispering grass. It's beautiful, in a wish-I-wasn't-so-edible kind of way. The sunlight hits differently here. Hotter, harsher. The wind smells less like damp moss and more like dust and dry dung. And the predators? Oh, they've leveled up. Lions, hyenas, saber-toothed cats. Creatures built for speed, muscle, and slicing you into bite-sized regret. Overhead, massive birds of prey patrol the sky, looking for anything small and slow enough to snatch. Spoiler, you qualify. Still, something pushes you closer. Maybe it's hunger, maybe it's curiosity, maybe it's just the fact that there are fewer trees and more ground every year. So you climb down. At first, it's just a scouting trip. You inch your way to the edge of the forest, standing under a lone acacia tree that barely gives shade. You glance around, tense, listening for footsteps in the grass. The ground feels alien, hot, dry, rough beneath your feet. You don't walk well here. Your knuckles drag. Your movements are awkward, your balance off. This isn't your world. And yet, there's a fruit tree just over that ridge. You can smell it. You can see it. It's not like the forest fruit. It's rare, exposed, delicious. But to get there, you have to cross open ground, and every cell in your body screams no. This is your first real evolutionary gamble, because you do it. You step out. Your back is exposed. The grass is too short to hide you. You are a slow, awkward target. But that tree up ahead? It holds calories, hydration, maybe even enough fruit to bring some back for others. You trudge forward. In this moment, you become more than a forest ape. You become a risk-taker, an opportunist. You are still just an animal. But now, you're playing a different game. This first, terrifying walk across the savannah is not a victory lap. It's not a glorious charge into the future. It's shaky, desperate, and poorly balanced. But it's a step that changes everything. Historians, and by that I mean evolutionary biologists with dusty field hats, still debate whether this shift was purely environmental, or if it involved social pressures, competition, or even chance. Maybe you just followed the food. Maybe you were pushed out by rivals. Or maybe some genius ancestor just wanted to go for a very bad walk. Either way, you step forward. The sun beats down. The wind tugs at your fur. Something snarls in the distance. But you keep going. Because the forest behind you is fading. And out here, under the open sky, there's danger. But also opportunity. You, the accidental ape, have entered the arena. The ground is hot beneath your feet. Your knuckles ache. Your spine protests with every clumsy step. This is not how you're supposed to move, but the forest is behind you now. You keep going, upright more often than not, awkward and exposed like someone trying to sneak into a wedding they weren't invited to. You walk, not gracefully, not efficiently. You hobble, wobble, and sometimes flat out topple forward. But over time, generations and not days, you get better. Your feet flatten, your legs straighten. Your arms, once perfect for swinging through trees, shrink just a bit. Your spine reshapes itself into a precarious column. Congratulations. You're officially terrible at being a quadruped, and still not great at being a biped. Evolution is generous like that. Why walk? Good question. You wouldn't think it's a great idea, especially considering how walking upright puts you on full display for anything with claws, fangs, or an empty stomach. But remember, evolution is not a genius engineer. It's a desperate gambler with a hangover, betting on whatever works well enough to not die today. Let's review some of the theories. First, the vigilance theory. Standing upright lets you see over tall grass. That's great for spotting danger, or better yet, dinner. Imagine being the only one in your group who can see a lion 5 seconds before it pounces. Those 5 seconds? Evolutionary gold. Then there's the heat dissipation theory. By standing up, you expose less of your body to the sun and more to the breeze. Four-legged movement is efficient in forests, but here, under a furnace sky, it's a recipe for heat stroke. Upright walkers stay cooler. Slightly. Which, in survival terms, is the difference between death by overheating and just being incredibly sweaty. And finally, the energy efficiency theory. While you're slower than your quadrupedal cousins, bipedal walking actually burns fewer calories over long distances. And out here, where food is scarce and far apart, that's a solid deal. A sort of gas-sipping fuel economy for the early ape on the go. But here's the real trick, the actual cheat code. It's not about how you move, it's about what becomes available while you move. Because when you walk on 2 feet, your hands are free. At first, this seems like a minor perk, but it's actually a massive unlock. You start using those hands for more than grabbing branches or scratching fleas. You carry things. A piece of fruit back to your sleeping partner. A sharp rock. A baby. Suddenly, you're not tied to the "eat it where you found it" rule. You can transport value. That might sound basic, but no other animal does this systematically. You're now living in a world where the past, present, and future are beginning to connect. You can carry food back to your camp. That means others don't have to go with you. Someone can stay behind with a newborn and not starve. Someone can rest, injured, and be brought something to eat. This changes everything. Provisioning, especially between males and females, and adults and offspring, lays the foundation for longer-term bonds. If you're a male who brings food back, your chances of passing on your genes go way up. Not because you're the biggest or loudest, but because you're a reliable delivery service. Nature's first door dasher. As this pattern continues, social dynamics change. Stronger pair bonds form. Shared child-rearing becomes more common. You stop being just an individual surviving in isolation. You become part of a team. Of course, not everyone agrees on how fast this shift happened. Anthropologists still argue whether provisioning was a cause of pair bonding or a result. Chicken or egg, fruit or flirt. It's hard to say for sure. What we do know is that the ability to carry created the conditions for cooperation, planning, and reciprocity. And these behaviors are the gateway drug to civilization. Think about it. Most animals don't plan. They react. But you? You're already thinking ahead. If you want to bring fruit back to your group, you need to remember where you found it. You need to judge how far it is. You might even need to leave some behind and come back for it later. That's delayed gratification. That's strategy. And now, because your hands are free, they start doing other clever things. You pick up a stick and use it to poke at a bush. You notice a stone that fits perfectly into your palm, heavy enough to crack a nut. You don't just see things. You see tools. That's next section's business, but it all starts here, with upright walking and a pair of curious hands. Your walk is no longer just a physical movement. It's a mobile lifestyle upgrade. Meanwhile, your body continues to adapt, one generation at a time. Your hips widen to support upright movement. And yes, this also makes childbirth much more complicated, one of evolution's more questionable trade-offs. Your spine curves into that signature S shape to balance your head over your hips. Your feet evolve arches, and your toes lose their grip strength. You're becoming something different. Not better, not worse, just else. But let's not forget the price. Walking upright is hard on your joints. Your knees are under constant stress. Your back is an orthopedic disaster waiting to happen. And childbirth? With those wider heads and narrowed hips, it becomes a dangerous, painful ordeal. Many early deaths are now linked to labor. Evolution gives with one hand and sucker punches with the other. Yet somehow you press on. Your world, once vertical and shaded, is now open and sun-scorched. You move differently, think differently, live differently. You've taken one small step for an ape, and it's about to become one giant leap for, well, something else entirely. The savannah is still a terrifying place, but you're learning to navigate it not with speed or claws, but with coordination, cleverness, and cooperation. You've found your first workaround to nature's rulebook. Don't evolve a better body, evolve a new way to use it. You're crouched in the dust now, squinting at a rock. It's nothing special. Just a chunk of volcanic basalt, worn by time, forgotten by the world. But something about its weight feels right. Your fingers trace the edge, not sharp, but solid. Your other hand drifts to another stone, one that's more rounded. You don't know it yet, but you've just picked up a hammer and anvil. Then, without really knowing why, you strike. The crack echoes across the plain. A sliver of stone flakes off, razor-thin and gleaming. You hold it up. It draws a bead of blood from your thumb with the lightest touch. Your brain lights up with recognition, with reward. This is not instinct. This is insight. You've just made a tool. It's crude, primitive. A sharp edge on a lump of rock. But it's yours. And more importantly, it works. This is where your evolution stops playing fair. Because now, instead of waiting for nature to gift you sharper teeth or stronger jaws, you make your own advantages. Other animals are stuck with whatever anatomy they're born with. You just hacked yours with a rock. And this changes everything. At first, the tools are simple. Stones for cracking nuts, long sticks to fish for termites. Maybe you watched another member of your group do it. Maybe you figured it out yourself. But either way, the seeds of something monumental have been planted. You've entered the age of Oldowan technology, named for the place in modern-day Tanzania where future humans would find your leftovers scattered like breadcrumbs across the millennia. The Oldowan chopper isn't elegant, but it's effective. And it's a sign of something even more powerful. Foresight. Because to make this tool, you have to see what a rock could become, not just what it is. You imagine the cut, the flake, the edge. You visualize something that doesn't exist yet. And then, you bring it into being. That, right there, is the beginning of human imagination. Tool use isn't unique to you, by the way. Crows do it. Sea otters do it. Chimps poke into termite mounds with sticks. But you're the first to take it to this level. To strike one rock with another deliberately, with intention, to shape it into something else. You're not just using the world. You're changing it. And what are you using it for? Let's be honest. Mostly meat. You're still not the top predator out here. You don't have fangs or claws or speed. But you've found a loophole. While the big cats eat their fill and move on, you linger nearby, tool in hand. Once the coast is clear, you shuffle up to the carcass, hyenas grumbling in the distance, and get to work. You slice through sinew. You carve away flesh. Most importantly, you bash open bones to reach the prize inside. Marrow. Sweet, fatty, nutrient-rich marrow. It's the energy drink of the Pleistocene, and your growing brain loves it. That brain, by the way, it's getting bigger. Not overnight, but across generations. And it's not just because you're eating better. It's because you're thinking more. Tool use demands hand-eye coordination, spatial reasoning, planning, and memory. You have to remember where the good stones are, how to strike them just right, and which tools work best for which jobs. This cognitive load rewires your brain, and the more you use your hands, the smarter you get. Which is ironic because chimpanzees have stronger hands, but they're not sculpting razor-edged tools. You are. Here's where it gets really weird. The part of your brain that controls fine motor skills in your hands, it's located right next to the region responsible for language. Coincidence? Probably not. Historians still argue whether tool-making caused language to evolve, or if they just developed in tandem. But the connection is there. As you manipulate the physical world, your brain practices sequencing, timing, precision, skills that eventually become useful for stringing together sounds into meaning. Your hands begin to speak. Your brain begins to grasp. The feedback loop is powerful. Better tools mean more calories, which fuel a bigger brain, which invents better tools. You're no longer playing by nature's slow, grinding pace. You've stepped onto a treadmill that accelerates as you run, but it's not just about tools. It's about what they represent. For the first time, you're using knowledge, learned behavior, to survive. Other animals adapt through biology. You adapt through culture. And once culture enters the game, evolution gets an upgrade. Your tools don't fossilize in DNA. They live in brains, in observation, in imitation. A young hominin watches an elder chip away at stone, then tries it themselves. No genetic mutation needed, just attention and time. The whole species benefits. Culture spreads faster than genes ever could. You've created a second kind of inheritance. And now your group, your troop, tribe, proto-family, is full of individuals who carry not just meat and tools, but ideas. You pass down techniques, preferences, even maybe styles. A flint edge here, a better grip there. Local tool-making traditions begin to emerge. Some groups favor one shape, others another. The seeds of regional identity are planted before you even know what region means. There's even evidence, hotly debated of course, that some of your early tools might have been decorated, etched, marked. Not just useful, but expressive. Was it art? Ritual? A bored afternoon? No one knows. But the fact that we can even ask those questions is telling. You're starting to become aware of the abstract, of something beyond the immediate now. You sharpen a stone today to use it tomorrow. You stash useful items. You remember where the best flint is buried. You map your world, not just physically, but mentally. And all of it, every leap, every flake of stone, comes back to one simple cheat. You freed your hands. What began as an awkward, inefficient way of walking turned out to be the hinge on which your entire destiny swung. You were never the fastest, never the strongest. But now, you're the one holding the knife. The kill is fresh. The lion's gone, its hunger satisfied. Vultures are gathering, but you're already there. Stone in hand, knuckles caked with dust, eyes alert for hyenas. You're not alone. Your group moves as one, some standing watch, others carving meat, one crouched low to crack open a femur. Marrow spills out like molten gold. But it's not the tools that keep you safe. It's each other, because out here, being clever isn't enough. You have to be together. Your brain, remember, has been growing. And it's not just because of tools or meat. It's because life now depends on navigating a tangle of social threads tighter than any forest canopy. Who's watching your back? Who stole meat yesterday and denied it? Who's quietly falling in love with who? Every look, every grunt, every gesture is a move in the most important game of all, social survival. This is the social brain hypothesis in action. According to this theory, your mind evolved not primarily to outwit lions, but to outwit each other. Because in your group, trust is everything. The ones who understand alliances, who remember favors, who notice who grooms whom, those are the ones who thrive. The savannah may be dangerous, but so is jealousy. So is betrayal. So is that one cousin who keeps trying to mate above his pay grade. You're not just growing smarter, you're growing political. And that, more than anything, is what sets you apart from other animals. Even today, we know the average primate group can be sustained with fairly basic cognition. But you're tracking dozens of relationships, conflicts, debts, and loyalties, all in real time. Your mental processing power is through the roof. Your memory sharpens, your empathy expands, your deceit evolves. You develop theory of mind, the ability to understand that others have thoughts different from your own, that someone else can know something you don't, that they can lie, that you can lie to them. It's the foundation of both kindness and manipulation. A double-edged upgrade. Congratulations. This is where empathy begins, but also politics. And for the first time, you start understanding not just what others are doing, but why. You're sitting beside the fire. Yes, you've started to tame fire by now, more on that soon, and one of your group flinches and glances toward the dark. You know, instantly, there's danger. Not because you saw it, but because they saw it. You respond to their fear as if it were your own. That's shared attention, and it's an evolutionary cheat code. Because now, you're not just reacting, you're anticipating, together. This shared awareness lets you coordinate more complex behaviors. Hunting a large animal? One person drives, one flanks, another waits in ambush. No spoken language yet, just gestures, grunts, eye contact. But it's enough. The hunt is successful. Now comes the real challenge, dividing the spoils. This is where the raw math of fairness gets invented. Who gets the liver? Who gets the marrow? Who actually helped? And who just showed up at the end hoping for leftovers? There's no formal justice system, no written rules, but there are expectations. Those who consistently share, they're liked, groomed, protected. Those who hoard? Well, let's just say it's not a good, long-term strategy to be the jerk with all the meat. Your brain, once focused on avoiding predators and climbing trees, is now constantly calculating social algorithms. Reputation becomes a matter of life and death. You build customs, not just reactions, but norms. You begin to tell simple stories, not in words yet, but in looks and actions and remembered consequences. That guy took more than his share. Don't trust him next time. That other one helped you feed your child? He's family now. What starts as practicality becomes morality. And the more you share, the more secure you feel. The group becomes something bigger than the sum of its parts. A lone hominin, hyena bait. But a group of 5, 10, 20? That's a wall of stone, tooth, and resolve. You've created a superorganism. Your evolution has cheated one of nature's fundamental rules: survival of the fittest individual. Instead, you're winning through cooperation. Your edge isn't in muscle or fur. It's in community. And with community comes memory. Not just your own, but collective memory. You begin to store information in other people's minds. Ask her where the berries are. He knows how to shape the best blades. It's a primitive form of cloud storage. Anthropologists still argue whether full language existed yet, or whether it was still a stew of proto-speech and expressive gesturing. But regardless of vocabulary, the function is there. Communication, shared planning, emotional resonance. That's language, baby. Even if you're mostly just saying, ugh, and pointing dramatically. Of course, there's still hierarchy. There are dominant individuals. Every group has its show-offs, its charmers, its bruisers. But now, power is tempered by social approval. Too aggressive? You might get exiled. Too selfish? No one warns you about the leopard. And for the first time, you can change your fate. Because now, a weaker individual with high emotional intelligence, strong social bonds, and the ability to read the room can thrive. You don't need to be the strongest, just the smartest about people. You're not just surviving in nature, you're surviving each other. And while some of you are sharpening stones and tracking prey, others are beginning to track stories, the unspoken rules, the remembered slights, the tales of past dangers and shared triumphs. You are, quite literally, becoming human. Not through your body, but through your relationships. So as you crouch beside that crackling fire, marrow-slick hands glowing in the orange light, look around. You're not just a group of apes huddled for warmth. You're the early echo of something huge. A society. The night is long. Not just dark. Total. There are no cities, no distant headlights, no comforting glow from a neighbor's porch. Just endless black. The stars above shimmer like frost on velvet. But they don't warm you. The wind bites. Every rustle could be teeth. Every low growl could be your last lullaby. You huddle together, backs against the rock wall, bones aching from the day's march. A half-eaten carcass lies nearby, carved clean with stone tools, but still ripe enough to attract hyenas. You can hear them circling. And then you see it. A glow, distant but growing. Flickering orange, licking upward from the dry brush, a lightning strike left smoldering. Fire. Every animal on Earth fears fire. You do too. But something inside you, curiosity maybe, or just desperation, overrides the fear. You edge closer, inch by inch, step by step, shielding your face with a scrap of hide. The smoke stings your eyes, but the heat, it's glorious. A brave ancestor, call her reckless, call her brilliant, grabs a branch from the edge and runs. The fire chases her just a moment, then dies. But she doesn't. She survives. And now she's holding light. This is not an invention. Not yet. You don't make fire. You steal it, nurture it, protect it like it's a newborn. If the flames die, you're back in the cold. But if you feed it, keep it alive, fire will feed you back. And that's exactly what you start doing. You learn to gather dry twigs. You blow on embers. You pass down secrets. Which trees burn hot, which woods smoke too much, which mushrooms catch a spark. It becomes a craft, a ritual. Eventually it becomes a skill. And now, night isn't something to dread. It's a shift change. You sit in circles, the flames snapping and popping. The shadows dance on the cave walls. You eat, tell silent stories with gestures, nap in warmth instead of fear. Fire becomes the new center of your social life. You've officially tamed a force that terrified the animal kingdom for hundreds of millions of years. But this isn't just about warmth or light. This is the second great cheat. The most important kitchen appliance you never knew you needed. The external stomach. Because now, you start cooking. You toss meat into the flames and discover it's softer, tastier, easier to chew. Then, over time, you add roots, nuts, fibrous tubers. Food that was once inedible becomes your next meal. Cooking is transformative. You're not just making things taste better, you're pre-digesting your meals. Fire does the work your stomach used to do, and that changes the math of survival entirely. Your gut, which once took up a lot of internal real estate and energy, can now shrink. Less time digesting, less time chewing, fewer parasites, more calories absorbed faster. And the energy you save? It gets rerouted, straight to your brain. That big, expensive brain, already growing thanks to tool use and social complexity, now gets turbocharged. You're feeding it a fire-fueled buffet of nutrients, from seared protein to roasted root carbs. If evolution had a cheat menu, this would be the top option. Fuel brain, reduce gut, enhance everything. And it's not just diet. Fire gives you power over your environment. Cold snap? Fire. Stormy night? Fire. Hyenas getting too bold? Wave a flaming stick at them and watch them yelp away into the dark. You've flipped the script. Where once you cowered at night, now you sing. Or hum. Or tap rocks rhythmically while the flames cast shadows of your moving hands. Those flickering silhouettes, by the way, they start meaning something. Over time, you trace them with ochre and ash. You draw on the walls. Memories, hunts, maybe even dreams. Historians still argue whether these early cave markings were religious, artistic, or just really enthusiastic doodles. But the point is, your imagination now lives outside your skull. Fire hasn't just cooked your food, it's cooked your mind into something bigger, braver, weirder. And something else changes too. Your rhythm of life. Before fire, you slept early, rose early. But now, night stretches longer. You stay up, trading stories, plans, ideas, maybe even forming the first long-term memories. Fire gives you time to think, to wonder, to notice that the moon changes shape and the stars shift. You've begun measuring patterns. That's a dangerous talent, because once you can spot a pattern, you can predict, you can plan, you can outsmart nature. Of course, this new miracle has its costs. Burn scars, smoke inhalation, the occasional whoops, the cave's on fire moment. But the gains? Astronomical. You've now changed your species from one shaped by the environment into one that shapes the environment back. You start gathering specific woods, clearing dry brush, even, eventually, setting intentional fires to drive game or regrow plant-rich zones. Fire becomes not just a tool, but an ecosystem weapon. Your relationship to nature shifts again. You're no longer just surviving within it. You're editing it. And remember, no other creature does this. Not like this. Chimps still eat raw. Wolves can't cook. Lions don't sit around campfires plotting hunts. Only you, the fire tender, the meat roaster, the gut shrinker. Only you looked at destruction and said, "What if we just kept it in a bowl and fed it sticks?" You've created a new axis of life, before fire and after. Before fire, you were cold, afraid, scavenging scraps. After fire, you are warm, social, and starting to dream of things no animal has ever dreamed. It's not magic, it's worse. It's technology. Your feet are calloused, your shoulders strong. You no longer wobble on two legs, you stride. across rivers, up rocky hills, through grasslands that shimmer like gold in the morning light. You are Homo erectus now. Not quite you, modern human, but getting close. Your jaw is smaller, your brow still juts, but your mind, oh, it's sparking. Fire at your heels, tools in your hands, stories flickering in your eyes. And now, for the first time, you leave. Not in a dramatic exodus, not in a moment of brave rebellion. You don't pack a bag and head for the border. No, it's quieter than that. Slower. More like a long, curious wandering that never quite turns back. Why go? Why step beyond the warm familiarity of the African cradle? Maybe it's the herds. You've become a skilled hunter, and your prey, antelope, zebras, even elephants, move with the seasons. You follow. One step, then another. Maybe it's the climate. The world is shifting again, as it always does. Waterholes dry, grasslands shrink, forests open up new corridors. Maybe your group just gets big. Too big. Too noisy. Too many hungry mouths around the fire. And so a few families break off. Or maybe it's just wanderlust. That beautifully human itch to see what's over the next hill. Historians still argue which reason mattered most, but the end result is the same. You go, and keep going, and keep going. North, east into the Middle East, where the land is fertile and the predators unfamiliar. Then into Europe, colder and more rugged than you're used to. Across Asia, all the way to Indonesia. You find new trees, new animals, new enemies, and you adapt. That's your true superpower. You don't specialize like the snow leopard or the cactus. You generalize. You carry fire. You bring tools. You teach your children how to flake a hand axe sharp enough to shave with. Though, let's be honest, you're not growing a beard just yet. You wear animal skins to guard against cold. You build temporary shelters. You learn to exploit whatever environment you land in. Jungle, savanna, coast, steppe. You don't just survive, you adjust. This is your greatest evolutionary cheat so far. You stopped evolving biologically and started evolving culturally. A leopard must grow thicker fur to face the cold. You just grab another bear hide. A vulture needs a different beak to eat a new kind of prey. You just shape a different spearhead. And while the other animals wait for evolution to tinker with their genes, you're upgrading your lifestyle every few generations, sometimes even faster. You're not just an animal anymore. You're becoming a system. You develop regional traditions. Different groups favor different hunting strategies. One valley favors fishing, another perfects bird snares. The Apulian hand axe, the Swiss army knife of early humanity, spreads across continents, from Africa to India to Europe, all made by hand, by firelight, by memory. And here's the kicker. Your spread is fast, not by modern standards, no planes or trains, but in evolutionary terms, you're everywhere. Homo erectus, and eventually other early humans, make it all the way from the equator to the snowy forests of the north. You stand in a cave near the Caspian Sea. Your breath fogs the air. In your hands is a warmed flint blade. In your brain is the memory of an aunt's story, where to find shelter when the storms roll in. You're no longer just surviving on instinct, you're surviving on information. And yet, the more you spread, the more you splinter. Distance breeds difference. Groups become isolated, shaped by their new environments. The ones who stay in Africa continue to evolve. Their brains grow, Their language skills refine. Their tools become more elegant. These are your ancestors, Homo sapiens in the making. Others, though, begin new evolutionary paths. In Europe, where the climate grows colder and the nights longer, a stockier, sturdier human emerges. Broad noses to warm, icy air. Powerful limbs to stalk mammoths. These are the Neanderthals. In Asia, yet another branch forms. The Denisovans. Fewer bones, more mystery. You'll meet them all soon enough. But for now, the world is your oyster. You've done what no other species before you has done. Not just spread, but thrived across drastically different environments. Why? Because you carry your evolution with you. You don't wait for your body to catch up. You make tools, you tell stories, you invent customs, you pass down fire. Nature has been playing slow, cautious poker for billions of years. But you've switched to speed chess, and you're stacking wins. And as you set up camp under a strange new sky, different stars, different smells, maybe a new kind of predator howling in the distance, you do something no other animal does. You dream, not just of safety, or food, or shelter. You dream of more, of exploring farther, of hunting better, of making the next tool, the next fire, the next story stronger. And as your eyes close beside the fire, curled in fur and warmth, somewhere deep in your mind, the seed of a question is forming. What if there's more than just survival? The wind howls over frozen grasslands. You pull the hide tighter around your shoulders, breath steaming in the morning air. The mammoths are moving again, slow, hulking, thunder-footed shadows across the white horizon. Somewhere nearby, wolves are watching. Somewhere farther, others like you are watching too. Only, they're not quite like you. Not anymore. Because you're not alone out here. You've entered the Ice Age, and it's a crowded stage. You've changed since those long walks out of Africa. Your body is lean, your legs long, your brain already on the upswing. But now you begin to meet others. Your distant cousins, forged by different paths, shaped by different climates, and molded by their own hard-won wisdom. The Neanderthals are here. And no, they're not brutish, hunched grunters dragging clubs and muttering about fire. That's bad movie science. In truth, they are survivors. Formidable, intelligent, and deeply adapted to the cold, unforgiving landscapes of Ice Age Europe. Their bodies are stocky and muscular, with wide rib cages and powerful limbs. This shape isn't random. It conserves heat. Less surface area to lose warmth. Think of them as walking thermal blankets. Their brains, even larger than yours on average. Not necessarily smarter, but different. Tuned to a world of snow and scarcity, of close-quarter hunts and long winters. They make tools, good ones. Sharp blades, bone awls, stone-tipped spears. They hunt in groups, ambushing prey with calculated brutality. They care for their sick and elderly. They bury their dead, sometimes with red ochre or antlers. Perhaps symbolic, perhaps sacred. They're not failed humans, they're parallel humans. And in the east, still more cousins, the Denisovans. Their fossils are rare, just a pinky bone here, a molar there, but their legacy lingers in your DNA. They thrived in the highlands of Asia, even surviving at altitudes that would make modern lungs wheeze. These are the other humans, not wannabes, not half-baked prototypes, but true experiments in what it meant to be us. And then there's you, Homo sapiens, You emerged back in Africa, while these other humans were weathering glacial winds and saber-toothed tigers. The climate in your homeland was unpredictable, cycling between drought and abundance. And that instability became your crucible. Where Neanderthals specialized, you generalized. Where they focused on large game, you diversified, fishing, trapping, foraging, collecting eggs, digging roots, cracking shellfish. You didn't wait for the mammoth. You snared the rabbit, shucked the oyster, and kept going. Your toolkit reflected this. Lighter, more refined, more flexible. Stone points, yes, but also microliths, composite tools, fishing hooks, needles. You were inventing options. And with each new food source, your brain sharpened. With each new technique, your culture deepened. You weren't built for one niche. You were built to adapt to any. That was your cheat, your code rewrite. You didn't need claws. You had plans. You didn't need fur. You had fox pelts and fire. You weren't bound to a single way of life. You carried dozens. And around 100,000 years ago, you made your move. The second great out-of-Africa migration begins. The first attempts are false starts, harsh lands, hostile neighbors, failed camps. But around 70,000 years ago, something changes. Your numbers swell, your tools evolve, your minds ignite. And this time, when you leave Africa, you don't stop. You spread again into Arabia, into the Levant, into India, into the jungles of Southeast Asia and the icy forests of Europe. And when you arrive, the neighbors are already home. You meet Neanderthals, Denisovans, maybe even other now lost human cousins we've barely begun to identify. And then what? That's where the story gets complicated. Because this wasn't a Hollywood-style showdown, it wasn't spears versus clubs, it wasn't sapiens kill all, end of movie. Historians still argue what happened. The truth is, there probably wasn't just one answer. In some places, there was conflict. In others, cooperation. And in many, there was interbreeding. You didn't just outcompete your cousins, you mingled with them. The evidence is in your blood. If you're not of recent African descent, you carry Neanderthal DNA, up to 2%. Some of your immune system? Straight from the Ice Age. If you're of Asian or Oceanic descent, you likely carry Denisovan DNA too, adaptations that may help with high altitude, virus resistance, or skin pigmentation. You didn't replace them entirely. You absorbed them. But eventually, they faded. By 30,000 years ago, the Neanderthals are gone. By 40,000, Denisovans vanish into genetic memory. Other hominin species, like Homo floresiensis, the tiny hobbits of Indonesia, disappear too. And slowly, surely, only one kind of human remains: you. But for this section of the story, you're still not alone. You're in a world rich with human variety, a web of overlapping cultures, cousins, and languages we'll never fully know. You sit by your fire, sharpening a blade. Over the hill, a different human camp does the same. Are they friends? Foes? Kin? The landscape is thick with potential and heavy with change. Because something is stirring in your mind, something not even the Neanderthals, brilliant as they are, seem to tap. You're about to make the leap from survival to imagination. And when that spark lights, the world will never be the same. You sit in silence, watching the fire's embers pulse like ancient stars. Across from you, a child hums, a simple, rhythmic sound. They press their fingers into the ashes and draw a line, then a circle, then something else. Not a map, not a thing, just an idea. And you feel it in your chest, a tug, a flicker, a recognition. Something is different now. Something has changed inside your mind. And not just yours. All around the world, from Africa to Europe to Australia, your species is waking up. Not in body, in thought. This isn't a change you can see in the bones. If we dug up your skull and compared it to your great-great-grandparents 100,000 years ago, we'd see no difference. Same brain size, same teeth, same build. But something has happened in the software. This is the cognitive revolution, and it hits like lightning. In a few tens of thousands of years, mere blinks in evolutionary time, your species explodes with new behaviors. You paint animals on cave walls with a kind of reverence. You string shells and teeth into jewelry. You bury your dead with red ochre, beads and tools. Not just a hole in the dirt. A ceremony. You make art. You make meaning. And above all, you begin to speak. Not just gestures and grunts. Not just look there and run now. You develop fully structured, symbolic language. Suddenly you can say things no creature has ever said. I saw a herd of antelope this morning, 2 hills past the broken tree. Tell that story again about the woman who climbed the sun. Don't go into the swamp. It's cursed. Language lets you share information with incredible precision. Where to hunt, what to fear, who to trust. But it also gives you something even more powerful, the ability to imagine. Now you can talk about things that don't exist. That's the true revolution. You tell stories, myths, dreams. You invent gods, spirits, ancestors, monsters. You envision a world beyond this one, a place where rules bend and meaning deepens. You explain the lightning with tales. You explain the sickness with curses. You explain yourself with identity. You've created a second world, one layered on top of the real one, and it binds you, because if I believe in the sun lion, and so do you, then we're connected, even if we've never met, even if we don't speak the same dialect or wear the same animal skins. The story becomes the glue. And your brain? It loves this. It swims in metaphor. It dreams while awake. It invents symbols and remembers them. The Lion Man sculpture found in a German cave, part animal, part human, is one of your earliest surviving creations. Not useful, not edible, just visionary. Historians still argue why it appeared when it did. Was it language first, then art? Or did ritual birth imagination, which shaped language in turn? There's no clear answer, but this sudden surge in symbolic thought appears everywhere in the archaeological record. Jewelry, carved tools, burial customs, and yes, cave art. Have you seen it? Deep inside caves like Chauvet and Lascaux, your ancestors painted scenes in ochre and charcoal. Bison mid-gallop, lions crouched to pounce, horses turning their heads just so. Not stick figures, motion. Emotion, expression. These weren't just decorations, they were portals. A sacred cinema of survival and story. And as you painted, sang, danced, and chanted, your brain changed too. The parts that managed speech, rhythm, and emotion strengthened. You began to think narratively, not just what happened, but what does it mean, and what comes next? This new kind of thinking opens 1,000 doors. You can now plan in complex detail. You don't just track a herd, you predict where it will go next season. You set traps days in advance. You store food for future feasts. You've bent time. And you can lie. Oh yes, with language and imagination comes deception. You can tell someone a false story to trick them, to gain advantage. That's dark, but it's power. And power means options. You've gone full mythmaker, storyteller, strategist, philosopher. And with imagination comes identity. You decorate yourself, not for camouflage, but for culture. You wear ochre on your skin, feathers in your hair, beads around your neck, not for warmth, for meaning. You mark who you are, what you believe, where you belong. You carve symbols into tools. Maybe it's a clan marker, maybe it's a prayer, maybe it's just, "This is mine." You are branding, tagging, memorializing. You're making memory physical. And now, your culture expands in a way biology never could. You pass down knowledge not just through genes or imitation, but through stories. Your children grow up knowing not just how to make a spear, but when to use it, and why. That knowledge snowballs. And as it does, your world gets bigger, deeper, stranger. Because language and imagination don't stop at stories. They grow into ritual, into belief, into shared systems that hold entire tribes together. Soon, you'll take that system and use it to build cities, empires, ideologies. But for now, in this cave, in this flickering moment, something quieter is happening. You are imagining what you could be. And for the first time in history, something entirely new stirs in your heart. Hope. You're sitting around the fire again, but something has changed. It's not just warmth, or food, or storytelling, it's the people. There are too many of them now to know everyone. The group is large, larger than any one brain can easily manage. You recognize familiar faces, sure, but others? Strangers, cousins of cousins, mates of former rivals, children born after the last migration who barely remember the cave you came from. And you're starting to feel it. The invisible walls pressing in, the hum of unspoken tension. Because human brains have limits. There's a number, a fuzzy boundary, not an exact count, that you can manage socially. It's called the Dunbar number. About 150 people, give or take. That's how many relationships your mind can track. Who likes whom? Who fought last moon? Who owes someone a favor? Above that, things break down. Memory falters. Trust erodes. You can't rely on shared gossip or eye contact anymore. You need something bigger. And now, thanks to your shiny new imagination, you invent the solution. You start telling bigger stories. Not about just your family or your camp, but about everyone. You invent symbols that unite you. Spirits, totems, names, rules, a code. Suddenly, you're not just those people from the river bend. You're children of the moon bear. You all wear the same spiral mark on your arm. You all believe in the sleeping god under the mountain. You all bury your dead facing east. And boom. Just like that, you've cheated the Dunbar limit. You've found a way for strangers to cooperate, not through blood or personal bond, but through shared belief. This is your most dangerous, beautiful invention yet. The fiction that binds. A fiction is anything that exists only because we believe it does. A god, a flag, a tribe, a future. None of these things are tangible, not like a rock or a pelt. But the moment two people believe in the same one, they'll hunt together, fight together, mourn together. This is the trick that lets 500 sapiens coordinate where 50 Neanderthals could not. Historians still debate exactly when this trick took hold. Some argue that ritual burials and totemic art go back farther than we think. Others claim true myth-making only exploded with language. But regardless of timing, the effect is clear. You've created an imagined order, and it's incredibly effective. Now you can build larger groups. Tribes become bands. Bands become networks. Networks stretch across entire regions. You meet someone from a 3-day walk away, and they show the same clay bead around their neck. And suddenly, they're not a stranger. They're kin. You invent symbols to carry these stories. A spiral, a handprint, a painted eye. These marks are portable culture. They tell others, we are one, even when you're not. And slowly, this shared identity gets more sophisticated. You start trading, not just objects, but ideas. Shells from the coast make their way inland. Ochre from the highlands ends up in river settlements. You're not just surviving, you're connecting. And connection scales, as long as the story scales with it. This is where the foundations of everything we now call civilization begin to settle into place. It's not agriculture yet, not cities, but the scaffolding is here. Shared rituals, common symbols, agreed upon truths. You're not bound by direct reciprocity anymore. You don't need to know someone personally to trust them. You trust the system, the belief, the myth. And over time, these beliefs grow teeth. Taboos develop. If someone breaks the story, acts against the god, insults the ancestor, eats the wrong animal, they're punished, ostracized, banished. You don't just believe together, you enforce belief together. This new kind of cooperation is flexible and scalable. Neanderthals may have had culture, care, even ritual, but without this flexible fiction, they stayed small, intimate, vulnerable. You leapfrog that. You form supergroups. This is your operating system upgrade. Other humans run on face-to-face trust. You run on narrative. That means your group can grow without losing cohesion. You can form alliances, wage coordinated hunts, defend territory, even negotiate peace. And don't underestimate that last one. A Neanderthal band might fight over hunting grounds. You might send a messenger, offer a gift. Say, our moon god is your sun god's brother. Let's share the valley. And if they believe you, boom, no bloodshed. Of course, it doesn't always work. Sometimes you do fight, you raid, you conquer. You tell stories about your superiority to justify it. Sound familiar? But even in war, myth plays a role. You're no longer just fighting over resources. You're fighting for your way of life, your truth. And that makes you terrifyingly motivated. You don't just want meat or land. You want to prove your story is the right one, that your god is stronger, that your ancestors walk taller. And that belief, it lets you endure things no sane animal should endure. Hunger, injury, cold, war. You walk through it all, fueled by nothing more than a tale whispered in your youth. This imagined order is your greatest hack. It lets you scale cooperation beyond anything nature intended. It turns a fragile, anxious ape into a builder of networks, rituals, and shared truths. It makes mass action possible, for good or ill. From here, everything changes. Because now, you can unite hundreds, thousands, someday millions. All because you agreed to believe in the same invisible thing. You walk across a field of bones, summer-old, bleached white by years of wind and sun. Others are fresh, cracked, split open for marrow. You don't know whose they are. Not what, mind you, who. Because the world is shrinking, or rather, you're expanding. Across every continent you touch, the other humans are disappearing. Not all at once, not in a single bloody conquest, but over time, over generations, over stories lost and genes folded into yours. You are now the last human standing. But how did it happen? There are theories. Of course there are. You're human. You love theories. Some say it was war. That you were smarter, faster, more organized. You arrived in Europe or Asia or wherever your cousins had built their quiet lives, and you outcompeted them for food, mates, land. Maybe there were skirmishes. Maybe it was outright genocide. You had superior weapons, larger social groups, better coordination. They couldn't keep up. That's the replacement model. Brutal, simple, final. Others suggest something gentler. That you met, talked, traded, loved. That Neanderthals and Denisovans didn't vanish in battle. They merged. You bred with them, slept with them, raised children with them. Their DNA lives on in you today, tucked into your immune system, your skin, your lungs. That's the interbreeding model, and it's backed by genetics. If you're of non-African ancestry, you carry about 1 to 2% Neanderthal DNA. Some populations carry up to Denisovan DNA. These aren't random leftovers. These are upgrades. Traits that helped your ancestors survive new climates, resist new pathogens, thrive in new ecosystems. And the truth? It was probably both. Some conflict, some mixing, some cultural blending, some territorial dominance. You didn't necessarily intend to wipe them out. You just did everything better. You adapted faster, you moved faster, you learned together faster. Because your real superpower wasn't physical. It wasn't even fire, or tools, or language. It was scale. A Neanderthal group might be 15 individuals. A Denisovan camp? Maybe 20. You? You rolled 50 deep just to pick berries? You coordinated hunts with 200. You built alliances with people you'd never even met, because you shared a myth. When there's conflict over a valley or a water source, the group with tighter bonds, better coordination, and more bodies usually wins. And when there's peace, you absorb the others into your story. Their gods become your god's cousin. Their customs become footnotes in your myth. Over time, the other humans fade. The last Neanderthal disappears from the record around 40,000 years ago. Some holdouts may have lingered in remote valleys, isolated islands, echoing the old ways until the last breath. But one by one, they vanish from the earth. You are now alone. The sole survivor of a once diverse human family tree. And how does it feel? Victorious? Yes. But also haunting. Because you are not just the winner. You are the only. And that comes with a certain weight. The silence where their voices used to be. The emptiness of knowing no one else quite like you remains. You stand atop a mound of skulls, not enemies, not prey, relatives. And yet your triumph is undeniable. Let's break down the cheat codes you used. Versatility. You weren't the biggest, you weren't the strongest, but you could do everything. Hunt, gather, fish, trap, forage, plan, adapt. You were the Swiss Army knife of hominids. Technology, not just sharper tools, smarter ones. You created spears with detachable points, fish hooks, nets, atlatls, spear throwers that could increase your range dramatically. Even early bone flutes. You weren't just using tools, you were reimagining them. Social organization. This was your real weapon. A Neanderthal group could cooperate well within itself, but you could coordinate with strangers, with allies, with entire networks of tribes. You could rally hundreds, then vanish into the forest, then reunite 2 moons later with a shared goal still intact. Storytelling. The myth of your people mattered. It held you together across space and time. It made you fight harder, survive longer, dream bigger. You became the human that outlasted all other humans. But this isn't just a story of conquest. It's also a story of inheritance. You still carry their legacy. In your bones, your blood, your thoughts. That anxiety that lingers when you're alone in the dark. Maybe it comes from knowing you weren't always the only one? That once, long ago, there were others who walked beside you. And now, you walk alone. The world is vast and mostly empty again. There are animals, yes, but no equals, no cousins, no second voices to echo your own. You start to fill that void with something else, with more story, more art, more imagination. You begin to invent not just gods of thunder and trees, but human-shaped gods, spirits of the dead, ghosts of the people who aren't here anymore. You keep their memories alive the only way you know how, by telling them. So tonight, as the wind howls outside your shelter and the fire flickers low, remember, you didn't just outlast them with muscle or tools. You outlasted them with meaning. And now, the stage is yours. You wake up with the sun warming your face and the smell of ash in your hair. There's no alarm, no clock, just the rhythm of the earth. Seasons, migrations, hunger, wind. You stretch, step outside your shelter, and take in the world you've won. Because this is your golden age. You don't know it, of course. No one ever does when they're in it. But from where we sit, thousands of years later, this is the peak of your species' natural life. You are a hunter-gatherer. Your diet is diverse and healthy. Roots, fruits, honey, nuts, roasted meat, fresh fish, wild greens. You walk miles each day. You laugh, sing, joke, argue. You raise your children in bands of dozens, surrounded by cousins, aunties, uncles, alloparents. Everyone knows your name. You work maybe 20 hours a week. You sleep when tired. You tell stories by firelight. You know the land like your own body, where the water hides, when the herds move, which mushrooms mean dinner and which mean dreams. There is no king, no jail, no landlord. The world is your home, and your home is wherever your feet land. And yet, the Earth is shifting again. Not politically, not mythically, climatically. The Great Ice Age loosens its grip. Glaciers retreat, temperatures rise, rain returns to places that were once frozen plains. And the megafauna, those giant mammals that fueled your hunts, begin to vanish. Mammoths, mastodons, woolly rhinos, gone. Why? Climate change plays a part, but also you. You've become too good, too organized, too efficient. You drive entire species to extinction without realizing it. There's no malicious intent, just fire, coordination, and hunger. 1,000 mammoths wiped out one campfire at a time. Suddenly, the world is changing, and you need a new game plan. At first, it happens quietly. You drop seeds by accident. You notice plants sprouting where you camped months ago. Wild grains grow taller where you urinated. A child returns to a spot and finds berries regrown. The first farmer isn't a genius. She's an observer. She realizes that nature can be coaxed, so she clears a patch of brush, drops a few extra seeds, waits, waters, weeds. The result? More food in one place. It's not instant. It takes generations. But the idea spreads. Tending becomes cultivating. Watching becomes planting. And with that, the agricultural revolution begins. Not as a big bang, but as 1,000 tiny nudges. And here's the trick. You think you're domesticating plants, but really, they're domesticating you. Wheat is sneaky. So is barley, millet, rice, maize. These plants reward you for working them. They grow abundantly, but they need your help to thrive. So you stay. You clear forests. You build fences. You drive off animals who eat your crops. You stop roaming. You start settling. You trade freedom for reliability. You create permanence. And once you stay in one place, everything else changes. You build better shelters. You dig wells. You stockpile food. You store seeds. You tame wild goats, sheep, pigs, cattle. You begin to shape animals like you shaped plants, breeding the docile, the plump, the useful. Over generations, wolves become dogs. Oxen replace your own muscles. Chickens cluck in woven pens. You have hacked evolution again, not just your own, but that of every organism around you. You didn't wait for nature to make food easier. You rewrote nature. But this cheat comes with a cost. Your life becomes more predictable, yes, but also more constrained. You're now on the hook. You can't leave your fields for weeks at a time. You have to water, weed, watch for pests. You have chores now. Your diet narrows too. You used to eat hundreds of species. Now, mostly grains. You get cavities, inflammation, anemia. Your stature shrinks. Your bones thin. And there's more. When you farm, you can support more people in the same space. Your population explodes. And the more mouths to feed, the more you must grow. The more you grow, the harder you must work. You are now trapped in what historians call the agricultural treadmill. And here's the kicker. You can't go back. Once a society starts farming, it becomes too dense, too dependent, too rooted. A return to foraging would mean starvation for most. You are locked in. The wild no longer sustains your numbers, only the soil you've bound yourself to. It's not all bad, of course. You have surplus now, extra food to trade, store, or gift. You start making pottery. You invent baskets. You build granaries. You create rituals around planting and harvest. You make new myths, gods of rain and grain and growth. Your identity shifts again. You're no longer the clever nomad on the open plain. You are the earth tender, the seed saver, the rain prayer. And as your fields stretch outward and your herds grow fat, you begin to ask questions no forager ever had to ask. Who owns this land? Who gets the extra grain? What happens if my neighbor takes too much? You don't know it yet, But these are the questions that will shape the next 10,000 years. You have won your battle against hunger, but you have stepped into a new kind of war, a war for control. You no longer drift with the seasons, you stay. And where you stay, others gather. And where they gather, villages rise. Not sprawling yet, just clusters of huts, tools, walls, fences. You can see the smoke from neighboring hearths. You know their names, and slowly those names become roles. There's the potter, the weaver, the healer, the elder, the one who sings to the fields before planting. You've stumbled into something revolutionary, specialization. Because now that you produce more food than you need to eat immediately, surplus, not everyone has to be a farmer. One person can shape pots all day, trading them for grain. Another can tend the fire, or care for children, or tan hides. And with surplus comes storage. And with storage comes something else. Jealousy. Someone has to manage the surplus. Keep track of what goes in and what comes out. Someone needs to decide who gets what when the harvest fails. Someone has to count. So you invent the first numbers. Not for astronomy, not for art. For accounting. For bean counting. You scratch tallies on clay tablets. You draw symbols for sheep and grain and jars of honey. Eventually these marks become abstract. Symbols for sounds. Sounds for words. You invent writing. Not for poetry. Not yet. For records. The first words in human history aren't declarations of love. They're lists of barley, tax receipts, proof that a goat changed hands. Congratulations, you've just founded the bureaucracy. And where there are records, there are people who read the records, and people who enforce them, and people who decide what the records mean. You've just invented the state. It starts small. A headman, a council, a priest with a knack for drought prediction. But it grows. Because managing land and people and grain is hard work. And someone always wants more. Soon, villages become towns. Towns become cities. The first great cities rise along rivers. Nile, Tigris, Indus, Yellow. Water gives you crops. Crops give you people. People give you labor. You irrigate fields, build walls, raise temples. And here's the twist. While your world gets larger, your personal freedom gets smaller. There are rules now. Hierarchies. Structures. A farmer answers to a landholder. A landholder answers to a priest. The priest answers to a king. The king answers only to the gods, who conveniently are now said to speak through him. You've built a pyramid, not just of stone, but of power. At the top, a few who own everything. At the bottom, the many who work to keep it that way. Historians still argue whether this shift was inevitable. Could we have stayed egalitarian foragers, forever free? Or was hierarchy baked into the surplus itself? Hard to say, but what's clear is that the die is cast, and with hierarchy comes inequality. For the first time in human history, someone sleeps in a palace while another sleeps in the dirt. Some wear gold, others wear chains. You have elites, peasants, slaves. Yes, slaves. People treated as tools, property, another chilling cheat of the human mind. The ability to rationalize cruelty with myth. They're different. The gods willed it. They lost a war. You invent prisons, armies, thrones, and all of it, this vast machinery of control, rests on your stories, your myths, your belief in laws, titles, divine rights. You've created the first civilizations, and they sparkle. temples, sculptures, songs, astronomy. You chart the stars, build ziggurats, write epics. The human imagination reaches dazzling heights. But the foundation is brittle, because packed together in cities, living with your animals, drinking from the same wells, you invent something else. Disease, smallpox, cholera, tuberculosis, plagues that leap from livestock to humans. You've become the perfect host, dense, sedentary, filthy. The price of population is pestilence. Your skeletons now show signs of malnutrition, arthritis, trauma. The average farmer lives shorter than the average forager. But still, the cities grow. Why? Because while the quality of life decreases, the quantity of people explodes. More food, more babies, more workers, more armies. You've traded long lives for large numbers. You've chosen scale over health, permanence over freedom. And war? It becomes constant. You have something now that others want: land, water, surplus. And so you fight. Not small raids, not skirmishes, but organized war. Soldiers, strategies, standing armies. You build walls not to keep out predators, but other humans. And still you tell stories. To justify the violence, to crown the kings, to inspire the fighters. You say the gods favor your city, that your ancestors tamed the first fire, that your people are chosen. The same imagination that once united small bands now divides vast empires. You've entered a new world, not of nature, but of civilization, a world of rules and riches, suffering and splendor. You've multiplied your potential and your problems. You've become both creator and captive. You won the wild, but now you must learn how to survive yourselves. You gaze up at the sky and wonder, not just at its beauty, but at its rules. Why do the stars move that way? Why does the moon change shape? Why does the river flood when it does? For most of your history, you've had an answer for all of this. The gods. Rain comes because the rain spirit is pleased. Sickness strikes because someone offended the ancestors. The world works the way it does because unseen forces push it that way. And for a while, that explanation is enough. But then, someone begins to ask a dangerous question. What if we're wrong? Welcome to the birth of science. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow, stuttering shift, a candle flickering in a temple filled with smoke. But somewhere, a curious human decides not to accept the old story at face value. They start with observation, the careful kind, measuring shadows, watching the stars, recording when the Nile floods and when it doesn't. They stop asking, "What do the gods want?" and start asking, "What actually happens?" That moment changes everything. Because when you begin to ask how instead of why, you begin to see patterns. And once you spot a pattern, you can make a prediction. And once you can predict something, you can begin to control it. You've stumbled into a new kind of power, a method, a cheat code for reality. It starts small, a way to align buildings with the solstice, a more accurate calendar, a better way to track the tides. But over time, the questions grow bigger. What is disease really? What is light made of? What happens if I drop this rock 100 times? What happens if I cut open a body and look? And the answers, they aren't always comforting, but they work. You realize that lightning isn't punishment, it's electricity. That plants don't grow because of prayer, but because of sunlight, water, and chemistry. That your body is made of organs, which are made of cells. which are made of something smaller still. Atoms, molecules, code. You begin to hack the universe. Not blindly like nature, not slowly like evolution, but deliberately, with method, with logic, with experiments. Historians still debate when the true scientific revolution began. Was it in ancient Mesopotamia with early astronomy? In Greece with Aristotle and Archimedes? In the Islamic Golden Age with algebra and optics? Or in Europe with Galileo and Newton? The answer, as always, is yes, because science didn't arrive all at once. It evolved. And when it finally took hold, it rewrote the world. You discover gravity, not just that it exists, but how it works. You build telescopes and realize the Earth is not the center of the universe. You look through microscopes and discover an entire ecosystem inside a drop of water. You stop relying on authority and start relying on evidence. And this shift is explosive. Your understanding of the world accelerates at an inhuman pace. You go from believing illness is caused by spirits to identifying germs. You go from watching birds to building machines that fly. You go from carving on stone tablets to building libraries of paper, then silicon, then code, and the effects ripple across everything. You build better ships, better maps, better clocks. You navigate oceans. You cross continents. You catalog animals, plants, elements. You invent the periodic table, an elegant framework that describes everything you can touch, taste, or burn. You invent medicine. Not charms or chants, but real, tested cures. You learn how to set bones, stitch wounds, fight infection. You develop anesthesia, vaccines, antibiotics. You double the human lifespan in less than a century. You invent industry, not just tools, but machines, factories, printing presses, engines. Suddenly, one person can do the work of 20. One book can reach 1 million readers. You invent electricity. You flip a switch and bring the sun indoors. You light up the night. You refrigerate food. You invent radios, telephones, computers. You begin to control the very building blocks of life. DNA is no longer a mystery. It's a blueprint, a string of code. And you don't just read it. You start to edit it. You've become not just an observer of life, but a programmer of it. And this shift, this explosion of knowledge, rests on one foundational idea. Don't trust the story. Test it. Observe. Measure. Experiment. Fail. Try again. Let the evidence lead, not the priest, not the king, not even your own beliefs. Of course, this new power isn't without peril. You use science to heal, yes, but also to destroy. Gunpowder, cannons, bombs, machines of war fueled by knowledge and industry. And yet, you understand. For the first time in history, your species knows what stars are made of, how babies are formed, how sound moves, how to split atoms and stretch steel. Your ancestors worshipped the sky. You now walk on it. The scientific method is the ultimate cheat, a way to reverse engineer nature itself, to ask the universe, what are the rules, and then bend those rules to your will. You have stared into the heart of the unknown and whispered, "Show me." And the unknown has answered. You stand in the dark, holding a lantern made of steel and glass. A spark clicks. The bulb glows. No wood, no smoke, no fire pit, just light. summoned at will. You flick your fingers, and the night obeys. This isn't magic. It's not even myth. It's science. Yes, but more than that, it's power. Real power. The kind that doesn't come from muscle or belief or even story. The kind that comes from fuel. Because until now, every civilization, every god, every war, every wonder ran on the same tired energy sources. Muscle and fire. Your own two legs, the ox pulling the plow, the wood you burned to bake bread or melt metal. But all of that had limits. You could only eat so much, only chop so many trees. The world was a giant, sluggish treadmill of effort. Then you discovered something that changed the game. Something ancient, compressed, hidden deep in the belly of the earth. You found fossil fuels. First coal, dense black energy from prehistoric swamps. Then oil, thick and sludgy, extracted from beneath oceans and deserts. Then natural gas, odorless and explosive, piped into every home like a genie in the wall. What you found was not just energy. You found time. Millions of years of ancient sunlight stored in organic matter, now released in an instant. You went from firewood to lightning bolts, from wind and sail to engines, pistons pounding, turbines spinning, steel screaming across rails. You created the steam engine, and suddenly water was not something you just drank or crossed. It was something you boiled, pressured, and commanded. You created factories, temples of industry. Smoke poured from chimneys like prayers to a new god. Production. You invented the internal combustion engine, then mounted it on wheels. Horses became obsolete. Distances collapsed. You could now travel 500 miles in a day without sweating. You unlocked electricity, then learned to store it. The battery, the generator, the grid. Cities lit up like constellations. Machines worked while you slept. Refrigerators hummed through the night, preserving not just food, but time. You had broken through the final energy ceiling. Nature was no longer your constraint. You had a new muscle, one that never got tired, never aged, never asked for food or sleep. And you used it to grow, to build, to spread. This is the dawn of the Industrial Revolution. A blink in time, less than 300 years, but its impact dwarfs everything before it. Your species multiplies faster than ever. 1 billion humans, then 2, then 4, then 8. Cities swell. Skylines stretch upward. Forests fall. Rivers are dammed, mountains tunneled through, oceans crossed in weeks. You manufacture steel, rubber, concrete, plastic. You assemble machines from machines. A cascade of feedback loops. Faster transport enables wider trade, which fuels larger markets, which drives more invention. Your ancestors once waited months for a distant village to respond to a message. Now, you send your voice around the planet in milliseconds. You put satellites in orbit, not to worship the stars, but to use them. You fly. You take to the skies in aluminum birds, then leave the Earth entirely. You land on the moon, a dusty echo of your ancestors' first brave step onto the savannah. But this time, you wear a suit of pressurized armor and carry your own air. You are not just surviving nature, you are escaping it. And all of it, is powered by ancient dead things: coal, oil, gas, buried sunlight. You burn the past to accelerate the future. But here's the twist. The cheat always comes with a catch, because the Earth wasn't built to process that kind of scale. The CO2 from those fires doesn't disappear. It lingers, traps heat, melts glaciers, warms oceans, acidifies rain, speeds storms, drowns islands. You've become not just a species, but a geological force. Geologists even give your age a name: the Anthropocene, the epoch of humans. You've reshaped the planet, not just its forests or rivers, but its very chemistry, its climate, its future. And you know it. This is not like before, when ignorance was protection. Now you can see the graphs, the melting curves, the disappearing species. And still, the machine hums. Because now, you're entangled. The same engines that threaten your world also feed your cities, drive your ambulances, run your hospitals. The same factories that choke the skies also build your homes. You're inside the beast, and it works, for now. Historians still debate the ethics, the inevitability, the blame. Was industrialization a genius leap or a tragic trap? Was it avoidable? Could it have been slower? Smarter? But regardless of intent, the result is the same. You turned your brain into fire. You turned your fuel into wings. You turned your home into an engine. And now, you must decide where it flies next. You sit at the peak now, staring down at everything you've built. Cities glitter like constellations. Satellites streak across the sky. Your voice rides invisible waves. Your thoughts bounce between servers. Your ideas swirl in clouds of data. You are not just a species. You are a planetary phenomenon. You, fragile ape, with no claws, no fangs, no fur, have become as gods. You fly through the air at 900 kilometers per hour while watching cat videos. You split atoms to power homes or to flatten cities. You edit DNA. You build artificial minds. You shoot robots into space just to see what's out there. You've won. You cheated evolution so many times it finally gave up and handed you the pen. You are now the author of your own biology, the architect of ecosystems, the engineer of fate. You made fire, tools, gods, and laws. You built pyramids, cathedrals, cities, and clouds of information that never sleep. You climbed out of the mud and onto the moon. And yet, you are also terrified. Because now, with no predators left but yourselves, the greatest threat to your survival is you. You've entered the era of the anxious god. It turns out, becoming godlike doesn't come with a manual. There's no tutorial level for managing a biosphere, no checkpoint save before the invention of nuclear weapons, no undo button for melting glaciers. You are now your own test subject. And the list of risks? It's longer than any myth. Climate change spiraling out of control. Artificial intelligence, learning faster than you can regulate. Pandemics, engineered or accidental. Nuclear war, still a button push away. Ecological collapse creeping into your crops and your oceans. Technological inequality, leaving billions behind while a few upgrade themselves into something post-human. Your triumphs have made you powerful, but not wise, not yet. And even with your overflowing grocery stores, your endless entertainment, your sky-piercing skyscrapers, you are not happier. You are lonely sometimes, overstimulated often, disconnected paradoxically. You have everything your ancestors dreamed of, and yet you lie awake at night asking, why do I feel like something's missing? Because what you gained in convenience, you often lost in meaning. And what once tied you to the earth Its rhythms, its danger, its silence has been paved over by glowing rectangles and delivery drones. Historians, philosophers, tech CEOs, they all scramble for the same answers now. What comes next? Because this is no longer a story about adaptation. Not really. Natural selection hasn't been your main driver for thousands of years. Now you select yourselves. You choose what to eat, what to build, what to believe, what to edit in your own genes. You stand on the edge of rewriting not just your tools or your stories, but your own definition. You are no longer adapting to Earth. You are adapting Earth to you. And maybe, just maybe, that's the final cheat, to outgrow even the game. But the question remains, can you wield this power without ending the story? You've climbed a ladder that stretches from dirt to data, from stone spears to space probes. You've cheated death, time, biology, gravity. And now, you're sitting in a bed, modern, clean, quiet. Your body is the same collection of bones, nerves, and dreams that once trembled at the forest's edge. But your mind, it contains galaxies. You are the result of every risk taken, every fire tended, every child protected, every bone sharpened, every god imagined. You are what happened when one ape asked, "What if?" and then answered. Now close your eyes. The earth spins quietly beneath you. The stars wait, blinking. Your ancestors whisper from the firelight. Rest now, they say. You've come far. Your breathing slows. The long journey behind you begins to fade. Not vanish, but soften. A distant campfire in the rear view of your mind. The dry rustle of savanna grass becomes the hum of your fan. The glow of torchlight fades into the soft hush of moonlight on your walls. You are still you, the same dreamer, the same thinker, the same builder of myths and cities. But for now, there are no problems to solve, no codes to break, no tomorrow to plan, just breath, in and out. Let the weight of millennia slip from your shoulders. Let the spears, the scripts, the satellites, all of it, settle. You are not running from predators anymore. You are not freezing in a cave. You are not fighting for fire or food or space in the tribe. You are safe. You are warm. You are home. Everything you are, everything you carry, came from the minds and hands and hearts of those who came before you. 10,000 generations stretching back to the trees. Each of them made a choice. To endure, to dream, to cheat a little, just enough, to keep the story going. And now, it's your turn. To write the next line. But not tonight. Tonight you rest, you exhale, you let the world spin without you for a while. Sleep, time traveler. You've earned it.